What is up YouTube? Welcome to Code with Lakshit. In this video guys, we will going to master the object-oriented programming language. So what exactly is object-oriented programming language? So it is basically a programming style which is associated with the classes and the objects. So let's first start with the class. Let's see how we can create the class in Python. For this guys, we will use the Jupyter notebook. Simply create a workspace. Let me select the right folder for it. Okay, I am creating a new folder here. Enter this folder, and here we will open the Jupyter notebook. Oops. Jupyter notebook. Okay, Jupyter, Jupyter notebook. That's fine. So the Jupyter notebook has been opened. So let's create a new file, and here select the Python 3. Then let's rename the file first. Now guys, let me show you how you can create a class. For that, use a keyword class and then name of the class. Let's say first class. Okay, then put this colon here. And now in this class guys, we will create a method. A method is basically a function. So for that, we will simply put the def and name of the method, or you can say function. Let's say first function. Okay, and here in this function guys, we have to pass the self keyword. It is the mandatory parameter that you have to pass to every function you create. Okay, I mean in the class. And don't worry about it guys, it is just used to call the function. Okay, now here simply we will put the code. Let's say hello function. Okay, now guys, what you have to do is simply create the property of this class, or you can say the object. How you can create is simply put the any keyword first class equals to then the name of the class. Okay, in this way you can define your variable. Oops. And now guys, you can simply call this function here using this object. Okay, what you can do is first class dot then name of this function which you have created, first function. Okay, let's call it. Here you can see the function has been called. Very easy, huh? Now let's create the variables inside the class. Okay, let's create a new class here. Then the name of the class, let's say second class. Okay, then we will create the class, let's say game, and we all know what we have to pass here. The first parameter should always be the self, and second parameter the value which we want to extract. Okay, let's say game player. Okay, we want to extract the player, and now we will use self dot any variable name. Let's say player id equals to then this parameter. Okay, player. Simply do this, and now guys, it's time to call this game function. Self dot call, and here we will pass the self And now what we will do is return this self dot player id. Okay, after doing this we will create the object, let's say second class equals to second class, and here guys, second class dot the name of the function, in our case it's game, and here we will pass the player, what you can say is, and one more thing guys, you can pass any data type here, string, uh, int or any other data type. Okay, sorry, I'm passing the string here, let's say my name, okay, Lakshit, and now we will simply call it second class dot call game. After this, here you can see we have extracted the string from this class. Okay, it's very easy. You can do the same with the integer also, same with the float. Easy. Okay guys, it's time to create the constructor. Let me show you what exactly is constructor. First we will create the class, let's say what we can, let's say mobile. Okay, then in this class we will use the diff init. Okay, one more underscore here, diff init, and here we will pass the self, comma, and the other, let's say parameters like what we can say, company, mobile company, then model. Here you can see is first you have define the self here, then we have passed the company name here, and then the model. Okay, what we have done here is, this is a constructor, this is the starting of the constructor. The application of this constructor is to pass the argument to the class itself. It remains fixed inside the class. Here you can see in this class we can pass the parameters of this constructor and it remains the fix. Okay, and now we have to repeat these steps. Self dot, let's say company equals to company, self dot model equals to model. Okay, now it's time to define the method diff mobile, what is happening, mob mobile, and here we can now simply pass one parameter. We don't have to take care of the other parameter like player or any other. Okay, we simply pass the self here, and now here guys we can simply format these constructors value. Okay, print, let's say company, then we will use the format here dot format, and here in this we will simply pass self dot this value. Okay, company. Easy. Let's do the same with the model, print model, and then the format self dot model. And now guys we can simply create the object, let's say m1 equals to class name mobile, and here in this we can pass these parameters. Let's say company name is Apple, and the mobile and the model. Here you can see we have created the objects. I have named this object M1, and here in this class mobile I have passed these constructors value. First the company name is Apple, and then the model name. Here I have put it the iPhone X. Now it's super easy to simply call this object m1 dot mobile, and if you call it, you will get the company name as Apple and the model name as iPhone X. Okay, this is how you will create a constructor. Okay, now guys, let's see what is inheritancy. So inheritancy basically means that you are inherited from your parents. Okay, it means that you have something genetic from your parents. Okay, and these same concepts apply in this inheritance process of object oriented programming language. Okay, let's see how we can do is, first we will create a class. Let's name this class vehicle, VI VEHI vehicle, and here we will simply create the constructor in it, and here we will pass the value. And in all vehicles, what's the most common thing? First we will check the mileage. Okay, mileage of any vehicle, and then what's the other thing? And let's say other thing, we check the cost. Okay, what's the cost of the model vehicle, sorry. And then what we will do is simply self dot mileage equals to mileage. And one more thing guys, don't confuse this variable with this. Okay, this parameter. Okay, this parameter is this value and it is a variable and it's a different thing. Don't think that this and this is same. You can name this any other also, but for the simplicity I am naming this. Okay, now let's back to the topic, and next the cost equals to cost. Now let's create the function inside this class, def, let's say details, 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 and here we simply have to pass the self. And now what we will do is simply print mileage is format self dot mileage, and same with the cost dot format self dot cost. Easy. Now guys, let's create the child class. This was the parent class, and now create the child class. And you know that what are the childs of this vehicle? It can be bike, it can be car, it can be truck, or it can be any other vehicle. Okay, but we are taking the cars here. Okay, let's create the class with the car, and here in this, and here guys, you have to pass parentheses, and in this parentheses you have to pass the parent class. In our case it's vehicle, VEHICLE. Okay, now let's create a simple method here. Let's say det self, and here let's simply print car. Now guys, what we can do is, what's the difference between this inheritance is, we can call this class using this method. Okay, let's say car equals to car. And now we can simply pass these value of this constructor into this value. Okay, let's say mileage equals to 200 and cost equals to, let's say, 40,000. Okay, and now we can call this method and this method with this object. Okay, car dot that, we know that we can do this. And now let's see how we can call this. Details, let's call it. Yep, it's running. So this is the process of inheritancy. Now guys, let's create another inheritancy process where the child will have the constructor also, which means these constructors will be present in the child also. Let's see how we can do that. First we will simply create the parent class. Let's say class equals to class, let's say 𝒉𝒆𝒂𝒔𝒆 vehicle, and here we will create the constructor, and here now we will pass the values mileage comma cost, and then we'll create the variable here. Let's say mileage equals to mileage and self dot cost equals to cost. Now let's create the detail method here, self, and now print mileage. What I can do is to save the time is I will simply copy this and paste it here. Super easy. So our parent class is ready. Now let's create the child class, class car, and here we will pass the vehicle. And now let's create the constructor for it, def init, and let's see what we will look in the car. We'll look in the car the mileage, the cost, how many number of tires, and the horsepower. Okay, simply first pass the self here, and now we will check the mileage, then the cost, then the horsepower, and in the last we check the tires. Okay, now as you know guys, these cost and mileage parameters are also present in this parent constructor. Okay, so what we can do is use a keyword called super dot init, and now we will call this mileage here and the cost parameter. Okay, easy. And let's do the same with the other variables. Self dot horsepower equals to horsepower, self dot tires equals to tires, not minus, it's equals to. Now let's create a function in this class. Let's say dit, and here we pass the self. And now guys, first we will print the category, child name, it's the car, and then we don't have to take care of this mileage and cost because we can get it from this details method. And for this cost, horsepower and the tire, what we can do is horsepower HP, don't confuse it with the Harry Potter. Okay, then we will pass the format here, format, and HP, print ty I know the spelling of tires is long, but don't take it seriously. Format ty tires, not the type, it's tires. Now let's simply call, first we will get the object, let's say car equals to car, and here we will pass these values. First the mileage, let's say 200, and cost equals to let's say 40,000, and horsepower let's say 20, and the tires let's say 4. Now let's try to call this det function here, det. Okay, we got some error. Okay, got it guys. Here in the super we have to put these parentheses here. Okay, now let's try to call it. Still the error, sp is not defined. I know I have to pass here self, and here self also. Let's see. Okay, yep, it's running fine. Here you can see this function is running very fine. Now let's try to call this details with this child class, car dot details, run it. Yep, we got the mileage, we got the cost, we got the tires, and we got the horsepower. Now guys, let's look at what is multi-inheritancy. So basically multi-inheritancy means the one child class has been inherited from the multiple classes. In the previous example we have shown a single inheritancy, and now we will look the multi-inheritancy, which means that we will have the two parents here and the one child. Okay, let's create it. Let's say parent 1, and here we will use the simple def dot use the value parent 1, and here we will pass the self and the name. Okay, and now we will name the self dot name equals to name. We will call the value 1 def call value p1. Okay, self, and now we will simply return self dot name. Let's do the same with the other class, other parent class, parent 2. Let's say def value parent 2, pass the self, then name of the parent, let's say name, and then self dot name equals to name. Okay, then we will call this parent not the parent but the parent class, call value parent 1 2. Okay, pass the self here, and now we will return it, return self dot name. Super easy. Now let's create a child class. Let's say class equals to child, and because it has been inherited from the two parents, we will pass the two parent here, parent 1 comma parent 2. Super easy. We will create the name of this child also. Let's name it value c1, pass the self here, and then we will pass the name here. Okay, let's say self dot name equals to name self def call value, not p1, c1. Okay, self dot, oh, simply self here, then return it. Okay, self dot name. Super easy. Now let's create the object of this child. Let's say child equals to child, and now let's pass the value to all these variable name. Okay, not the variable but the method. Child dot value, oops, value c1. Let's say name of the parent, let's say Ravi. Let's name of the second parent, let's say, what I have done here, p1, p2. Name of the second parent, let's say what can be the name of the second parent? Let's say Seema. And now let's put the name of the child, value dot c1, let's say Ram. Okay, it was running fine. Now let's call all these values. Okay, child dot call value c1. Let's call the p1 first. Yep. Okay, what value p1 parent, it's wrong. Let's see what the error is. Okay friends, I have spotted the error. The error is that we have to name all these variables different. I have named them all the same, so that's why it's showing the error. Let's say name1 and name1, and here the name2 and the name2. Okay, let's do the same with this also. Name1, name, not the name1, name3, name3, call it Ravi. It's the value of parent one is, the name of the parent one is Ravi. Let's check the parent 2, call parent 2, not the 1 but the 2, it's Seema. Now let's look the child name here, C1, it's Ram. Great. Now guys, let's look what is multi-level inheritancy. So it's basically mean that you have some inheritancy from your grandfather. Here we will have the grandchild, the child and the parent. So we will have the three classes here, okay, which has been inherited from each other. Let's create the parent class first, parent, and we will create the function here. Let's say value 1, and here we will pass the self dot name. Okay, and self dot name 1, name p, let's say, equals to name, and we will call it call value 1. Okay, pass the self here, simply return self dot name p. Then we will create a child class here now. Okay, we will create the child class now, class child, and here we will put the inheritancy of this parent. Now we will simply create a function for value c, and here we will pass self dot self comma name, and now self dot, let's say name c equals to name. Then we will call it def call, let's say value c self. That's all the same process, and now return self dot name c. Great. Now it's time to create the grandchild class. For that, what we will do is class grandchild. Okay, and make sure that you pass this value only, because it have all the inheritancy from its parent, and you will have the parent, and not you but this grandchild will have this inheritancy from this class. Okay, let's say child def value g. Okay, self comma name, and then we will call it self dot name g equals to name, then def call value g self, and then we will simply return it. Okay, dot name g. Great, let's check it. Okay, it does not have any error. Now simply create an object for the grandchild, grand, let's name it short, g1 equals to grandchild. Great, now pass the name. Not here. Okay, we don't have to pass any name here. g1 dot, we have to pass the name in this value function, value 1. Okay, let's just rename it all. No, I don't think we have to take care of that. Let's say value 1, and name of the parent is, let's say Harry. Okay, and g1 dot value 2, value not 2 but the value c. Let's say name of the child is, let's say James. g1 dot, and the name of the grandchild, it's value g. Let's see, g1, what we can name it, Emma. Okay, we did not got any error here. Now let's try to call it, call value 1, it's Harry. Okay, name of the parent is Harry, and let's see value child, yep, it's James, and let's check the grandchild here. Yep, it's Emma. Great, we have just completed the object oriented programming. Okay, and the most important thing is here is that we have completed all this in just one video. And guys, if you support my efforts, please like this video, comment on it if you really admire my efforts here, and please put the feedback also. And at last, don't forget to subscribe my channel. Okay, so that's all, and thank you, and meet you in the next video.